Hi everybody, this is Roy Bhandari with TalkCondo.com, and today we are joined by Jason Lam, VP of Sales and Marketing at CentreCourt Developments, and we're here to talk about 55 Mercer. Jason, thank you very much for your time. We've got a lot to cover. So, top down, I want to talk about CentreCourt Developments, increasingly becoming one of the best builders in the city. We've got a lot to talk about. I think we could honestly do 30, 60 minutes just on CentreCourt, but we're going to try and truncate it and pull out the most important bits. We're going to talk about the entertainment district, quickly becoming one of the best neighborhoods in the entire city. Mm-hmm. And again, we'll talk about why. We're going to talk about this location specifically, King and Blue Jays Way, and we're going to talk about 55 Mercer. So let's start talking about with CentreCourt Developments. We sat together 8-9 months ago, just before the launch of TC4 and 5.
Right.
You guys had a bit of a banner year in 2019.
We did.
So tell us a little bit about how you guys did in 2019 and how that sets you up moving forward.
2019 was a very exciting time. We started the year off with Transit City 4 and 5, huge success, as everyone knows. We went through over 1,000 suites in sales, and we quickly sort of pivoted later in the year and launched a site over in the Forest Hill pocket called the Forest Hill Condominiums. And overall, we did over 1,300 sales, which is top in the high-rise market. So
which is huge. Like again, so CentreCourt Developments were number one in terms of market share.
Correct.
Of condominium developers in the GTA.
Sold.
Yeah, which is remarkable.
It's a huge year for us, and I think we couldn't be happier. And I think the team at CentreCourt has worked incredibly hard to get to this point, and a lot of that is just being organized and all the precision behind it, just all about execution. And right now at TC4 and 5, we started construction. It's currently the largest residential construction site in Canada, across 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we're excited to occupy 1, 2 midway this year and 3 at the end of the year. Amazing.
CentreCourt Developments are such an interesting developer because in the grand scheme of things, you're a relatively young developer.
Yep.
Started 10 years ago, approximately 10 years ago. And in that space of time, you've quickly become this developer that all the other builders sort of look towards as best in class in a number of different places.
Right.
And you said precision and execution, and you sort of gloss over those terms, but there's a lot to be said about those kinds of details that you guys go into. Like, in a lot of ways, you guys make very hard things seem very easy. It's not easy to build a new downtown from scratch in Vaughan.
Correct.
And you guys are doing it and making it look very easy. Mm-hmm. It's not easy to start construction 6 months after you go on sale, but you guys do it and you make it look easy. It's not easy to go straight to final closing and have no occupancy. But you guys do it, and these things are so difficult that we've got other builders asking, how are CentreCourt doing it? And these are builders that have been around for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years, and they're asking those questions. And I think that speaks volumes to CentreCourt Development. So just give me a little bit on that and sort of from your perspective, because I'm telling you how we're seeing it from the outside. So
it's hard to speak to elements and parts of the business that I don't regularly dive into, but the truth is it is about precision. It's about the principles that the company has and identifying the needs of the residences and the purchasers, as well as our partners in the broker community. So it's about identifying what's being done, how we can do it better, how we can plan ahead. And I think that's really what separates CentreCourt from pretty much every other developer in the city, is that we are very focused on one task, and we're very organized in how we mobilize and execute, and we understand what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, well in advance, so that there's no second guessing. And a lot of it is strategy, actually, and just how we go about construction, how we go about phasing out sales. Being ready, always being zoned, so we don't have to wait. That's a big one for us.
Huge.
So for those of you that are wondering, 55 Mercer is fully zoned, and every site moving forward will be fully zoned. But I get the question all the time, and people walk up to me and will say, wow, CentreCourt is building buildings at a massive clip relative to the buildings beside. And if you ran a time lapse of a building that started construction 6 months before us, we would just finish a year before them. All of that is, it's
time and time again. That's not a
yeah. That's not, and I think that's not about being lucky. I think that's about being precise. It's being organized. It's about being very surgical about that process, and that is. That's a huge credit to the team, the construction team, the development team, and all the business leaders within the company.
Just to tie it back into why these things are so important to an investor,
right?
Knowing that the investment that you made is going to be in the ground at a relatively quick pace, you feel secure on your investment. Understanding that your building is going to be built quicker than other buildings means you can get your equity working for you much quicker than you can with other buildings. You can get the rent. You can reshuffle that money into other property and grow your wealth like that. So these things are very, very important.
We often joke that in the same amount of time that you could have bought one project, the average project, you could have bought in CentreCourt product twice.
Yeah.
And again, that just speaks to the execution. And that's what really separates us from the rest of the market.
Amazing. So let's shift and talk about the location of 55 Mercer. I want to talk about the entertainment district. Entertainment district for us, and this location specifically, I think is very interesting because when we got our big break, quote unquote, was when we sort of identified the entertainment district, 10 years ago, as a neighborhood that we felt had breakout potential. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it came down to a sort of the narrative that we had was the entertainment district got its big break when the Toronto International Film Festival moved from Yorkville to the entertainment district.
Right.
That in itself is not a huge thing, but what had to happen to support the film festival.
Correct.
So all of a sudden you've got amazing restaurants opening up all over the place.
Right.
All of a sudden you've got the best names in hospitality opening up hotels. You've got the Ritz-Carlton, you've got Bisha, you've got Thompson Hotel opening up to support this. And now obviously you've got Nobu coming. And Nobu could have gone anywhere in the city. They could have gone to Yorkville, they could have gone anywhere, mm-hmm. but they're coming on Mercer Street. Mm. So all of a sudden all this infrastructure to support this event is sort of what grew this. And then over the years, we've seen huge amounts of residential growth happen because of the demand to be in this neighborhood. At the same time, CentreCourt, one of the buildings, the first building that CentreCourt built was a block north of 55 Mercer. It's Peter Street Condos.
Right.
So it's an interesting place where we've seen this evolution of the neighborhood. So is there anything you wanted to talk about before we move on to specifics about the entertainment district?
Well, I think it's fitting. I mean, 2020 represents the 10-year anniversary of CentreCourt being in the industry, and in 10 years we've done more than most developers have been able to do, and I think it's something to be proud of, and I think we strive to continue to grow and to be better and to improve, but I think it's fitting that we come back down to this pocket, this node with 55 Mercer 10 years later, and I think that's very exciting.
Amazing. So entertainment district. The proximity to the financial district.
Right.
Very, very important. The proximity to the path network. Very, very important. Mm-hmm. The proximity to this is what I want to spend some time talking about, is the proximity to a large number of tech jobs.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to tell you tech jobs from my angle, and I want to hear it from your angle.
Oh, for sure. So
an amazing anecdote that I recently heard from one of my clients. The reason we keep talking about tech jobs, is because these tech companies that are coming in are setting up shop in and around this area. They pay very, very high wages. When you've got high wages within a pocket, that's going to put upward pressure on rents. It's going to put upward pressure on prices. As an investor, these are very good things. Recently, a client of mine had a condominium just around the corner from 55 Mercer. It's a one-bedroom unit. It was vacated, and he re-rented it to a 23-year-old kid, first job out of university, working for Uber. As a first salary out of university, he's earning $150,000 a year. So when you're in a location that's surrounded by these kinds of companies, bringing in this kind of talent, paying this kind of salary, there's only one way for the investment to grow. Yeah. So I want you to go through the tech side of it. I know you guys have done a lot of homework on this, so you educate me on what's going on there.
I think sort of layer into sort of where you're going with that is it's not so much, I mean, to add to it, that 23-year-old, that 25-year-old, that 27-year-old, where do they want to be?
Correct. Yeah.
And they want to be in an environment where things are very convenient. Lifestyle is very convenient, very easy. Everything is accessible.
Sure.
And that speaks to sort of always looking to the skyscrapers where there's AAA employment, but there's so much that comes with that amenity, right, of being central and connected. But speaking to the tech job, you're right. A lot of people are talking about tech, and it kind of flies under the radar. We are the third largest tech market in North America.
Yep.
We are the number one market in North America in terms of recruitment of tech talent.
Yep.
And if you look at where these major tech companies reside, where they open their business, it's all within the confines of the core, the downtown core, the center ice, and literally within 600 meters of 55 Mercer, you've got 100 tech companies.
And
varying,
growing.
And it's constantly growing. They want to be concentrated. Yeah. They don't want to be sprawled out. They're all concentrated in a very particular area. So I think that is the evolution, the maturity. You use the term financial district. I mean, this has really become the tech district. And 10 years ago, it was parking lots and nightclubs. And we've seen this evolution and this maturity in the pocket. And it's not... and it's very logical. Why? Because it's so central. This land, as we've grown, this parcel, this space is bound to redevelop because it's so prime. Prime because of its accessibility to the financial district, to the path system, which no one talks about, subway access, employment. There's so much to like about it. The evolution of TIFF coming in, the restaurants, the lifestyle, the CN Tower's not going anywhere. And I think that's funny is that every time you see an aerial of the CN Tower in the future, you're always going to see your building. And if that doesn't define how close you are to the core, I mean, I don't know what else does. This is as central as you can get, and it's still growing. It's still going to take another step, another multiple steps. So if it's exciting today, again, it's going to be even more exciting in the future.
And I think I already mentioned Nobu's coming here. Could have picked anywhere in the city to be. But all of a sudden, you start to look at the best architects on the planet. Where are they designing buildings? They're designing them in this pocket. We've got obviously Bjarke Ingels around the corner. We're going to have Frank Gehry designing a building around the corner from here. Hotel, condominium, 90 stories. Like this is all happening in this pocket for a reason.
Yes. And you still have elements that are there today, the Ritz-Carlton, the Shangri-La, the Bisha. It's already gotten to that status, and I think we're just trying to overload. But I think Toronto, when you look at Toronto's neighborhoods, there's very few corridors and pockets that stand out like Yorkville, King West, Entertainment District, Tech District, Financial District, that really define their district names. And I think this area is going to really take, like I said before, a next step to be the pinnacle. Like, it really will stand out as the place to be, to work, to play, to live, to raise your kids. To retire. It really fits any and all lifestyles.
We've often made sort of the distinction between Yorkville as being sort of classic luxury, and this pocket sort of being a more modern luxury for
a lot more contemporary.
Young professionals.
And you're getting that demographic that like to spend. That if you want to live downtown, it's difficult to live in a house.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Right, you live in a condominium. It has become the norm. And high-rise condominiums are taking over the market. It's become an expectation. It's, I think 10 years ago, people were finding it difficult to conceptually think about what it's like to live in a condo, whereas today it's incredibly common, A, from a practical convenience point of view, and B, from an affordability standpoint.
I want to touch on the path very quickly.
And
again, it's something that we sort of glossed over, but it, again, is such a major amenity to be at your doorstep. I lived downtown for a number of years, and I use the path every chance I got. And again, if you think about the tenant and the buyer pool in this location, who are they going to be? They're going to be people who work in the financial district, or so being this close to the path opens up so much. You walk to the ACC underground, you walk to the financial district underground, you walk to the subway underground, and then obviously with the winters that we're experiencing, this is an incredible amenity to have. So I just want you to talk about the path a little bit.
The path has a misconception of being only about finance and law and accounting and sort of geared towards a financial district. And you've seen, and rightfully so. But I think the way we've sort of built the city, and we're integrating multiple buildings to be connected to the path. And 55 Mercer is the gateway into the path connection on the furthest of the west side. I implore that you look at the map of the path system, and you will be amazed at how far you can go. It's over 30 kilometers, which I believe is a world record. And it really captures what it's like to be downtown, because it is a city underneath the core, the downtown, the most central part of the city. You know, very, very marketable and notable streets as Yonge, Bay, University, King, Queen, Adelaide. Like they all run underground, the veins of the core. But to have that accessibility 150 meters away from the path, from 55 Mercer, is that ultimate connectivity to Subway, as you mentioned, to Eaton Centre, to it doesn't have to be about the financial district always. You can go down to the waterfront. You can get your way to the CN Tower, Metro Toronto Convention Centre. There's a number of hotels. I think there's around 75 buildings connected to the path network. And I think it's going to continue to grow. It's going to take time. But I think it's a hidden gem that people rarely talk about, and not every building, not every community is connected to something so massive, right? You can't find that anywhere else in the city. So to have it so close, it is a luxury. It is an amenity that needs to be sort of front and center when it comes to what it's like to live, not just at 55 Mercer, but in this pocket of the downtown core.
Amazing. So I want to now talk about 55 Mercer.
Okay.
The first thing that struck me was that you guys called it 55 Mercer.
Right.
Correct me if I'm mistaken, but this is the first time CentreCourt has used a residential address as the name of the marketing name of the building.
I believe so.
There must have been a reason for that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think Mercer has an elegance to it. It really speaks to the area. Also makes it a lot easier for people to identify an address rather than some of these creative marketing names. But I think we wanted to stay true to, we wanted to bring out the essence of the excitement about what's going on down there. And I think that was a very fitting name.
Okay. Tell us about the building. How tall it is, give us the suite count, give us the rundown.
55 Mercer is 47 stories tall. We'll have 543 suites, from studios all the way up to 3-bedroom plus dens, so it'll fit a variety of lifestyles. And I know we keep talking about investors, but I think part of it is we do a lot of the things we do because of the end user as well.
Of course.
So from building fast to designing our buildings and identifying great locations, it's multifaceted.
It's important that you say that, because part of the reason that we look at CentreCourt as being a huge success is that it's one thing to get the sales at the pre-construction level, but when you look at CentreCourt buildings that are delivered and lived in, and you look at the resale values and the rental values of Karma, of Index, of Core Condos.
101 Peter is up there, believe it or not,
within the sub-markets of those buildings, CentreCourt are always in the sort of, their buildings are always sort of in the top.
Especially on a PSF basis.
On a rental basis.
They do very well.
It's not just about being great buys now, but they are buildings that people
trade incredibly well.
And again, this goes back to making things that are very hard look very easy. You mentioned the suite mix already, the studios to 3 dens.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the floor plans right now, but
you will.
Knowing what I know about CentreCourt and the history of CentreCourt and the way you guys design buildings, I have a picture of what those units are going to look like.
Right. Well, I think the precision in construction is no different than our approach in how we design our buildings on the front end.
Yeah.
Our amenity programming is 18,000 square feet of amenities. We have an incredible two incredible partnerships with Peloton, which is innovative, and it speaks to the modern technology and the maturity of the area and the tech district that's sort of really taking over this node. And then we have a very exciting partnership with FAF that will bring an EV car share to the building, as well as a luxury rental delivery program. I can speak more to it in the coming weeks, but I think when you look at the FAF brand, they exude luxury, and all the brands underneath their banner are wildly exciting. So if you're a car fan, definitely something that will really draw people's eyes and their attention to what makes 55 Mercer separate itself from the rest of the buildings in the surrounding area.
Amazing. And these are, CentreCourt have done it in the past where these partnerships have been put in place and have been successful.
Absolutely.
So this is why we continue to bring these elements through.
And speaking to sort of designing things on the front end is this identifying, who the buyers are and who the residents are. It's a very thoughtful process that we consider from, what the city mandate is and what our investor mandate is and what the end user will be looking for. So we put a ton of work in our floor plans. They're wildly efficient, I think, and as a direct result, our price points have always been very, very on point.
Price points. Talk to us about price points.
Affordability in the best location. I think that's the most simple way to put this. It's we'll be starting in the mid 500,000s.
Amazing.
And I think unit type to unit type within the marketplace, you'll find that we are easily a much better option from a price point, a much better option from a locational standpoint. I think we're gonna surprise a lot of people with, maybe not surprise because we've sort of done it time and time again, but I think we're really gonna catch a lot of people off guard, and it's going to be very exciting for the people that are looking for an investment opportunity.
Talk to me very quickly about the ground floor retail.
We will have ground floor retail that will be a beautiful jewel box that will speak to the elevated community of Bisha, of Nobu, of this sort of transformation, this pocket that's of TIFF. Right now, I think we're working on a couple of things, but we will have that established once the building's up and running.
Amazing. So I'm going to try and very quickly recap what we talked about, and then you tell me if we missed anything. Okay, we talked about CentreCourt Developments and how, as a builder, they do just incredible things for the investor, and their delivery and the precision that they're able to deliver these condominiums on are at a level that most other builders are envious of. We talked about the entertainment district as not just an area that is amazing today, but is connected to so many different things that make downtown Toronto amazing, but there's also so much growth happening still to come in this area. We talked about the proximity to the tech jobs, some of the highest paying salaries probably in the city, and the evolution of that and how it's continuing to grow. We talked about this area being high in demand for this young professional, the modern contemporary luxury, as we like to refer it to. We talked about 55 Mercer, 47-story building with head to toe, retail at the grade, amenities, and then amazing floor plans throughout. Is there anything else that you would have liked to have spoken about that we didn't?
I think there's so much to like about the product, and we can talk about it, you're right, for another 40 minutes and really take a deep dive, but I think you really covered a lot of the key points that anyone that's looking to live, to buy, to invest, those are the reasons. And I think if you need more than that, I think there's, it's hard to top something of this caliber.
Awesome. We're excited. I think, a lot of the chatter already is pegging this as probably one of the top launches of 2020. It's only January.
It's rare. I mean, I think, we did an analysis on the last 6 years. The product that represents this node is about 2.7% of all product released. So you don't get very many opportunities. On average, it was 690 units over the last 6 years that get released in this node.
Wow.
So you have 690 opportunities on a yearly basis, and that's it. If you want to buy in any other node, there's tons of opportunities. But if you want to be in this pocket, you want to be part of this, it is incredibly rare. So for us, there's 543 opportunities to be a part of this community. And I think it's going to continue to be harder to assemble and to develop. And in the timelines that go into these things, 4 to 6 to 8 years long. It's not every day that you get a brand new building spec'd out to the most modern, contemporary design to invest, purchase, or live in.
Amazing. So if our clients are interested in purchasing, what do they have to do, Jason?
What a loaded question. They're going to connect with top brokers such as yourself that have access to 55 Mercer.
Amazing. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.